You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Let's have a look at England and talk about England's performance in this World Cup for 2023 and talk about their performance and how they went about things. Well, for England, it was a disappointing World Cup campaign from the defending champions from 2019. I don't think we've ever seen a worse title defence in Cricket World Cup history because it was pretty poor. It had to be said. It reflected in the way they played their cricket and their result in this World Cup. They finished in 7th place on the points table in this World Cup. That was their result, England, in this year's World Cup. In the group stage, they won 3 games and lost 6. Leading run scorer was Dawid Malan with 404 runs. Leading wicket taker was Adil Rashid with 15 wickets. And their results in this group stage of the World Cup paints a picture and tells a story of how poorly England played. The first game against New Zealand, they lost heavily by 9 wickets. They won against Bangladesh by 137 runs. They sort of bounced back, but from then on in, it sort of went downhill. They lost against Afghanistan by 69 runs, a very shock upset in this World Cup. Then they lost to South Africa by 229 runs, which was a big loss in Mumbai. They lost to Sri Lanka by 8 wickets. They lost to India by 100 runs, where they were pretty much on top in that game against India, but then didn't capitalise. Then they lost to the rivals in Australia by 33 runs. They had a good win over the Netherlands by 160 runs. And they won against Pakistan by 93 runs to wrap up their tournament. A little bit too late by England's point of view. So that's how England performed in this World Cup overall. A terrible World Cup, really. You know, the batting and bowling didn't fire at all. All the players looked out of form. There was a lot of rumblings behind the scenes. Disunity in the camp, poor decision-making by Butler and the coaching staff, and the batters and the bowlers didn't really play at their potential. We know that this England team has led the revolution in one-day cricket in terms of England one-day cricket, in terms of playing brave cricket, being aggressive, taking the game on, especially under Owen Morgan's leadership. And that's why they won the 2019 World Cup. But under Butler and Matthew Mott as captain and coach, they haven't really quite found that mojo, and they didn't find that mojo in this World Cup. Probably sort of coming towards an end of an era. A lot of the players in the one-day team coming towards the back end of their careers. They've still got plenty to give, but they're coming towards the end of their time. And we saw a team that's slowly entering transition phase, and hopefully will start the rebuild. But for England, their fans were very disappointed. They didn't plan for this World Cup. The squad that they assembled for this World Cup, none of them played any sort of one-day cricket together for a long period of time in the build-up to this World Cup over the last 4 years. England have changed their priorities around a little bit, obviously rebuilding the test side under Stokes and McCullum's leadership with Bazball. And going into this World Cup, they didn't quite plan accordingly. And that's why they struggled, the preparation and the planning. So for England, it was a pretty abysmal World Cup, it had to be said. Towards the end, they won a couple of games against the Netherlands and Pakistan, but it was a little bit too late. The damage was already done up front. We sort of saw the writing on the wall after the first game against New Zealand. And then, yes, they bounced back against Bangladesh, but the shock loss to Afghanistan pretty much summed up where England were at as a team, really, in this World Cup. It was a very shock loss. Afghanistan played some good cricket in that game, and England were well below their best in that game, but also in this World Cup as well. So, Butler, his captaincy was tested. He wasn't in the greatest of form either. So nothing more to say about England, really. It was just a poor performance. It just didn't get going at all. And for a team that was so dominant for so long in one-day cricket, sort of coming towards the end of that, and we saw that in this World Cup. They really struggled in these conditions in India. The batting, we know the likes of Bairstow and Butler and these names, Livingston that they had in the squad, can do great things. Even Joe Root and Ben Stokes, but unfortunately they fell very short of their best. The bowling struggled. Mark Wood struggled. David Willey bowled okay. Chris Woakes struggled, but then bowled well. Adil Rashid bowled very well. Moeen Ali didn't bowl that much, but he wasn't really effective. So it was very indifferent for England in this World Cup. And they'll be disappointed, no doubt about that. Very disappointed with the way they played in this World Cup in terms of their performances. And also another thing, it's the manner in how they lost, the results. That tells a story. The way they lost was also another indication of how poorly they played. To finish off about England, a very poor World Cup from England. Not quite at their best at all. And in a way, it was sort of a coming to an end of a great era, which dominated one-day cricket for so long, went on to win the 2019 World Cup. But unfortunately, what we saw in this World Cup was an England team coming towards the end of that golden era and period, and that was reflected in the way they played in this World Cup as a team. Thanks to everyone who tuned into our ICC Cricket World Cup 2023 coverage over these last few weeks. It's been great fun, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we have bringing it to you. If you're watching or listening to this episode of the podcast on our YouTube channel, let us know in the comments your thoughts on England's ICC Cricket World Cup 2023 campaign. We would love to hear what you have to say.